Well, John and Aaron, just take a look at this. All you have to do is touch the foundation and it crumbles away in your hands. It's a brand new home and already there's tens of thousands of dollars in damage.
A major part of Indy's success here is because of the fans. Even in a struggling economy, they're showing up in droves. More than 40,000 people showed up today, and that shatters any previous record.
Firefighters tell me the worst part of all is this black suit, but how bad can it really be?
When the heat index is 115 degrees outside, the last thing you want to be wearing is 60 pounds of heavy equipment and gear. I've only been in the suit for a few minutes and I'm drenched in sweat.
Thousands of dollars in damage and no one's taking responsibility. All at one townhome owner's nightmare tonight at 6.
Well, John, tonight the Senate unanimously passed a bill that would change Iowa's sex offender laws. Now, just a few days ago, many lawmakers were up in arms about the controversial bills.
Well, Sonia, it means that the town of Hamburg is counting on the second levee right behind me that they just started building several weeks ago. It's to reinforce the original levee, which of course breached just this morning. This levee behind me is the last line of defense before the floodwaters.
Not only is it extremely windy out here, it's also very icy. We were outside shooting video tonight, and my photographer and I, when we got out of the car, he almost wiped out because the parking lot was so icy.
The holidays are when we need those workouts most.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Sana. You guys know how many cookies, candies, and sweets are just laying around the newsroom. Look what I found just a couple of minutes ago. This is what's left over at the end of the day. Now, while many of us don't think about the calories before we pop the morsel into our mouth, listen to this. A little brownie like this, which Sonia baked, by the way, can have up to 16 grams of fat and 500 calories. It's not the time of year you want to be skipping your workout. Hey Dave, well, seeds are flying off the shelves here at Earl May's Garden Center, probably a sign of tough economic times as more and more Iowans are turning to their recession gardens. Well, it seems to be paying off. Take a look at these lettuce seeds. You'll pay about $2.50 for them here at Earl May's Garden Center, but the return is huge. Garden experts predict you can get about 800 heads of lettuce in this tiny little bag.
I think it's really hard for people to get used to the weather. Nearly 60 degrees the other day, and now it's snowing 4 inches. People are not driving like there's snow out there. We saw several spinouts, several accidents within hundreds of feet from each other. The State Patrol says if there's one thing you can do right now, that's just to slow down. They said most of the accidents they've seen this afternoon is because people are just driving way too fast, Aaron.
Yeah, Emily, and I heard you in the newsroom earlier talking about how long it took you guys just to travel back and forth. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Aaron, we came from 235 in MLK and we went to 80 in Douglas. It took us over 2 hours, probably 2 hours and 15 minutes to get there and back. The traffic is just ugly.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Emily Carlson. After dealing with a number of blows, including the loss of Maytag Corporation, the city of Newton turned to the Iowa Speedway for a rebound. Today, the town's population nearly quadrupled with 60,000 race fans. Live from Chopper 13, Dan Winters joins us above the U.S. Cellular 250. Dan, from your point of view, it seems Newton is doing pretty good today.
The Citizens Advisory Committee determined he did not violate the Sheriff's Department policies. Still, he moved off his beat and attended sensitivity training.
Aaron, what's his status? Is he still on the job right now?
It's our understanding he's still on the job right now.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron. We'll definitely keep following that story. Last week, the city awarded Central Iowa Mechanical of Des Moines $286,000 to be used for the installation of the boilers. Well, winter was about the furthest thing from all of our minds today, not with such perfect fall-like weather in our forecast. Chief Meteorologist Ed Wilson, is it? So my theory is that the Vikings are just bad luck.
It's been a bad season. Now, you're a Vikings fan. You were there in the snow,
Monday night,
in the cold.
freezing cold. Had a great time. It was fun outdoor football in Minnesota.
And that could happen all next year.
I know.
Starting to hear that.
Well, tonight most people are cleaning up from opening those presents, and for most people that means an overload of holiday trash. Experts estimate Americans throw away 25% more trash between Thanksgiving and New Year's. But not all of that trash has to go to the landfill. Much of it can be recycled or reused. Unlike other states that are trying trying to move their primaries up. Today's ruling will not result in penalties from the RNC. That's because the caucus does not determine delegates for the National Convention. That is a separate process which takes place in April. Well, a drastic turn of events for the winner of last month's Iowa straw poll after recent criticism that Michelle Bachmann's campaign is losing steam. Well, today marks the start of a new era for the Appleton-Parkersburg School District. Aaron Thomas, the son of late Ed Thomas, took over the position as athletic director today. Aaron's father, the school's legendary football coach, held the position prior to his murder back in June. Police say Ed Thomas's former player, Mark Becker, shot Thomas in front of students at the school's makeshift weight room on June 24th. Riding for a reason. They may seem tough, but these area bikers are here to protect abused children. It's not the type of therapy you would typically think of for children who have been the victims of physical or sexual abuse. However, it works. Area bikers empowering abused children and protecting them from their attackers. Aaron Brilbeck has a story. Out of the 400 students visited today, 15 re-enrolled in high school. The 5 schools that participated are East, Hoover, Lincoln, North, and Roosevelt, as well as Scavo campus. It will be a while before a Waukee teen injured earlier this month can return to school, but her friends are determined to help her recover. Governor-elect Terry Branstad is warning Iowans that when he takes office, there could be drastic changes to the budget. This afternoon, Branstad laid out what he calls the sobering reality of the state's money situation. He says Governor Culver put the state in a dire situation by using one-time money to balance the budget, and that when he becomes governor, there will be some changes. Also, out of the governor's office today, the 40 people who have been selected to serve on Branstad's new Advisory Education Council. University of Northern Iowa President Ben Allen and Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds will co-chair the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Advisory Council, or STEM for short. Presidents of Iowa and ISU will also play key roles in the council.
That's right, Aaron. It was time for some good news here in Hamburg, and that's exactly what they got today. This morning, the Army Corps of Engineers tells me that the floodwater will reach the secondary levee outside of Hamburg, but it will not go over the levee. They say there should be 6 feet of room from the top of the levee to the floodwaters. They're saying the town of Hamburg here downtown should not get wet. Of course, that's all depending on how strong that secondary levee is, and that's the job of the Iowa National Guard.
It's a battle against time. Instead of the desert of Afghanistan, a rural highway in western Iowa. Instead of the Taliban, these soldiers are fighting a flood.
It's kind of a good feeling to be on this side of a shovel instead of the other side of a rifle.
50 Iowa National Guard troops are working around the clock to keep Hamburg dry. Their mission, pack down sand in these HESCO barriers across 1.5 miles of the secondary levee. It's hard work.
Somebody who's a football player might think of up downs or something on that line. It's like sticking your feet in quicksand, sucking them out, and then doing it over and over and over again, and then just going on to the next one.
It's a race against the clock, and these soldiers are feeling the pressure. The people of Hamburg are counting on them to save their homes and businesses as the floodwaters are creeping closer by the minute.
I wasn't expecting anything like this, that's for sure. I've only been in for 2 years, and it's pretty intense doing this.
This view from higher ground gives you a better idea of just how quickly the water is approaching Hamburg. Yesterday, you couldn't see any water outside of town. Today, it looks like there's a lake outside of Hamburg. That water is now less than a mile away, and it is quickly approaching the second levee.
Well, even if the water stops now, the community will never completely recover. You know, it may come back, it may survive, but it'll never be the same.
Beth Mincer anxiously watches as the Missouri River encroaches on her home. The Army Corps of Engineers says her house should stay dry, but their new projection that water will not top the secondary levee gives Beth little comfort.
I mean, I'm glad it's finally here because the waiting is enough to kill you. But, you know, I don't know if the levee will hold. I hope it does.
Hamburg's fire chief says the panic level in town is much lower than it was Monday. But he knows there's still a lot of work to be done.
Control chaos, yeah, that's the best way I can put it.
All that the town of Hamburg can do now is pack their levee tight and hope their sand, sweat, and spirit are enough to keep out the mighty floodwaters.
We'll take all the prayers we can get.
Right now, everyone in Hamburg here is crossing their fingers and hoping that that secondary levee stays in place. The Army Corps of Engineers expects the floodwaters to go over I-29. They'll close that sometime tomorrow and reach the secondary levee by tomorrow afternoon late. Aaron, the only thing that the people in Hamburg here can do is sit around and wait for those floodwaters to come right up to Hamburg.
It is a waiting game, and it changes minute by minute. Thanks for the update, Emily. Emily Carlson joins us live along Interstate 235 with the story. Emily?
Oh, sorry, Aaron. I got a little distracted because I was sitting here texting. Now, if I get distracted texting just standing here, imagine how distracted drivers get out there texting on the very roads that you drive on. Now, 26% of drivers say they text while they're driving, and that's just the percentage of those who admit to the bad habit.
We all know how dangerous it can be, pushing the pedal and the buttons on your cell phone at the same time. Yet many drivers do it anyway.
Probably every day, to be honest.
60% of teen drivers admit to texting while driving, yet it's no laughing matter.
Do you get distracted ever?
Sometimes. That's why I've kind of cut back, because too much swerving is not a good idea.
Swerving, which can lead to fatal accidents. According to a University of Iowa study, texting is the leading cause of death for 14 to 19-year-olds.
The texting takes their minds off the road, for just a second or two, but if it's the wrong second or two, it can, prove to be fatal. And
RJ Voss teaches teens how to drive. He says the topic of texting comes up constantly, something he says should be banned while you're on the roads.
The sooner we get rid of them, the safer the roads will be.
And that's exactly what lawmaker Akeo Abdul Samad is trying to do.
When you're texting, you're looking at the cell phone. You are not looking at the road.
He wants a law on the books making texting while driving illegal.
We're talking about safety. We're talking about saving your life.
Abdul Samad says it's lawmakers' job to take away the power to text because even though many drivers know the risks, they just can't hang up the habit.
I need to stop. I really should.
Abdul Samad introduced legislation last session to ban not only texting, but talking on the phone while you're driving on the road. However, it did not make it out of subcommittee last session because of time constraints.
First time I walked into this church, I felt like I was home.
It's a feeling many people in the community share. St. Paul's was more than just a building to Martinsdale residents. It was home.
My sisters and I grew up here. So we played over at the church. We all went to the church. And it was part of the community, part of everyone's family.
About 8:45 last night, the church started on fire. More than 50 firefighters from 7 different departments tried to save the 108-year-old building. But the smoke and flames were just too much.
It's like hearing your mother died. That's what that feels like. But you go on.
If the church was like a beloved matriarch of the St. Paul's family, the bell was the crown jewel.
In my opinion, the kids can pull that bell stronger than any adults, and they made it chime louder than because of the enthusiasm they had with ringing the bell. So that's a good memory of mine.
Members of the congregation stayed late into the night hoping the steeple could be saved. But just 1 minute before midnight, the bell was taken by the flames.
Here it goes. We all stood around and cried and prayed.
After more than 100 years calling members to church,
I guess it was just symbolic of that was the true end of what was here.
The bell is silent.
From the beginning, the church has celebrated the resurrection. And the one thing you have to have for a resurrection is death. And so this place will be resurrected.
The pews are burnt to the ground, the altar indistinguishable in the ash. But the congregation knows their church is more than 4 walls and a roof over their heads.
Sometimes Lutherans are seen as kind of cold and standoffish, and we don't like to shake hands or whatever, but in this case the hugging and the caring for each other is just palpable when we gather for worship.
They may have lost their home, but the people of St. Paul's will never lose their faith.
We're a small congregation, but we always say we're small but mighty. We always make things happen.
This is why we got to get rid of this tax code.
According to the Iowa poll, he's the fastest rising presidential candidate in Iowa. In the last 4 months, Herman Cain has picked up 13% of Iowans' votes, and he's done it with just one visit to Iowa since the straw poll in August.
It's interesting. It's almost as if Iowans are saying, the less you're here, the more we like you.
Herman Cain leads the Iowa poll with 23%. That's more than double the numbers he had in the Des Moines Register's June poll. The second place finisher, Mitt Romney, has visited Iowa just 3 times the entire year. So much for hitting the campaign trail.
This just tosses that whole idea on its head, because you've got Rick Santorum, who has spent more time here than any other candidate. He's hit more than 70 counties out of our 99 counties, and he is really at the bottom of the pack.
Another takeaway from the poll is Michelle Bachmann's rapid drop. In June, she was on top of the Register's poll with 22%. Now she's a distant 4th with just 8%.
She has just collapsed in Iowa, and that's another big surprise. From winning the straw poll in August, and just a couple months later, and she's really just down with the lower tier candidates.
While Bachmann falls and Cain rises, Mitt Romney stays steady. Ron Paul and Newt Gingrich are nipping at their heels, each with 7%. But with 9 weeks left until the big day, a caucus win is still almost any candidate's for the taking.
Perry and Paul have both released new television ads, and Bachmann's campaign says she will be in Iowa much of the next 100 days or so until the caucuses. As for Romney, right now he has no plans to visit Iowa in the near future. He and Herman Cain, the 2 frontrunners in the poll, are the only candidates who will not be at the National Association of Manufacturers Forum in Pella next Tuesday. Dave.
These polls are always interesting, but we also remember 4 years ago this poll showed that Fred Thompson was comfortably on top, and we know what happened to him. So
exactly, there's a lot of time left for them to drop and fall.
Definitely. Thanks, Emily.